Joined by Senator Ted Cruz of Texas, longtime friend of the show, and welcome back, Senator. Good to have you.
Hugh, great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
I want to talk about the verdict first. Your podcast has taken off. You and Ben Ferguson, what do you do that, 3 times a week?
We do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. 3 of them are audio, and 1 of the 3 is video as well, and it really has been phenomenal. We launched it 3 years ago. It soared to the top of the charts, became the #1 ranked podcast in the world. We've had over 50 million downloads, and every week we're beating CNN in total viewers. And so the reason I do it, Hugh, is the reason you do your show, which is to get the truth out to people who are frustrated at being lied to by the corporate media, because the corporate media no longer reports the news, that they are partisan propagandists. They have a message to drive. And, you know, the nice thing about the podcast format is you can actually engage and do a deep dive and explain what's really happening with an issue and give information and facts so that listeners, when they're talking to their friends and family, when they're standing around the water cooler, can understand what's really going on.
Now, Senator, you've been in public life a long time. You've taken a lot of questions from a lot of reporters, and you've argued in front of the Supreme Court, a half dozen to a dozen times. And no one ever told you the questions, right? No one ever gave you the questions that they were going to. I never give you the questions. Did the LA Times ever give you a question that they were going to ask you?
The LA Times never has, and almost never does that happen. Occasionally, if you're doing like an event in front of a conference, they'll sometimes preview the questions, but that's not really a media interview. Media, pretty much never.
And so what did you make of that press conference yesterday? The president had a cheat sheet. He had an order to call, and he had the question from the LA Times reporter. I'm astonished.
There have been a lot of things that have changed in our country in the last decade, and one of the most significant is the death of journalism. And I believe Donald Trump broke the media. You know, if you think back to 2015, 2016. People used to debate, and you would see people in the media argue, the media is not biased. There was a whole debate about, is the media biased or not? Nobody argues that anymore because you can't claim it. And the problem is they hate Donald Trump so much that they get on camera and they just foam at the mouth. And so now they have a panel of 5 people discuss how Donald Trump is the devil. And everyone agrees, and they have no one who disagrees. No, he's worse than the devil. That's the only disagreement you can have. and what is amazing, look, you've been doing journalism and radio and going on TV a long, long time. It used to be there were people in journalism who aspired to the ethos of, I'm going to report the facts, I'm going to report both sides, I'm not going to give opinions. And they were usually bad at it. And by the way, CNN back in 2015, 2016, they tried to do that. If you asked them, they believed that's what their mission was. What's amazing today is the vast majority of the corporate media no longer believe that's their mission. They're not trying to present both sides. They have embraced that their role is to be advocates, and they're not just Democrats. They are the left wing of the Democrat Party, and their role is to push everyone, including the Democrats, to go further left, further left, further left. And I think that's a terrible outcome. When the New York Times, and you've read Barry Weiss's resignation letter from the editorial board of the New York Times. It's one of the most compelling indictments of modern journalism written. I think it ought to be assigned to anyone who wants to be a journalist. And it's not good for the country when we don't have journalists doing their job anymore or even pretending.
I think they're hiding the president's infirmity. Do you think he's infirm? You worked with him a long time, Senator Cruz. Do you think he's infirm?
Look, I think he is badly, badly diminished. I think they are actively covering it up. And, I will have to say an amazing statement. You mentioned that I've worked with him a long time. That's true. I've known Joe a long time. But I can tell you this, in the 2.5 years he's been president, I haven't spoken to him once.
Wow.
And that is true of almost every single Republican senator. We sit around at lunch and talk about how none of us have spoken to Biden, and that is weird. When Obama was president, I spoke with him regularly. When Trump was president, I spoke with him every week, sometimes every day. And they hide him from him. They keep him in the basement. They're terrified to have him talk to us. And the strange thing is, look, when I was sworn into the Senate, Joe Biden's the one who swore me in. I mean, he spent 40 years in the Senate. He's a man of the Senate. We all know him. And they're hiding him because he is so profoundly diminished. And
30 seconds, Senator. Do you think that he's going to be on the ballot? Chris Sununu on this show said yesterday, no, he doesn't think he's actually going to be on the ballot in 2024. Do you?
I think it depends. Right now, I think Democrats believe Trump is going to be the nominee. I think if Trump is the nominee, the odds are higher that Biden is the nominee. If Trump is not the nominee, then I don't think Biden will be on the ballot either.
And that is it going to be Gavin Newsom swoops in from left field, and they're not going to let Vice President Harris get the nomination. She'll lose 50 states.
So if Biden is not the nominee, I think the top four in the Democratic field are Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, Elizabeth Warren, and Gavin Newsom. And if I were to handicap that, I think Elizabeth Warren is the id of the Democrat Party and is who would likely win in that battle.
Oh, my goodness. Well, that's a little bit of newsy stuff. Senator Cruz, always good. The Verdict, I will be listening today. It is a wonderful podcast. Everyone should do it. Next time we'll talk con law and whether or not the United States Congress can actually legislate anything over the Supreme Court when it comes to disclosure. The correct answer is no, but I'll ask the senator that next week.